Welcome. Packing up some orders today for eBay, Poshmark. I think that's the only thing I got going out today. Post office isn't open today, but I thought I'd go ahead and get some stuff packed up. So we're going to start with my personal eBay first. We'll do those first, and then we'll move on. I've got my camera set up a little different today, so just make sure. Okay, let's start here. First thing that we're going to pack out today, if you've been watching the reels, we have this NECA Movie Maniacs Halloween figure. This came from a purchase where I bought a ton of different toys, where I paid $400 for everything that I got. And this one sold for $17.99 before shipping. Get this pulled up so I can see here. And I've been trying to make sure that these streams work a little better on YouTube and Facebook. So hopefully it's not too choppy. We've got the GoPro working, so the video footage should be pretty good. But I've been dealing with a little bit of choppiness on there. So anyway, this is what sold first. We're going to get this packed up. Did everybody have some good sales this weekend? Anybody go to any good garage sales? Me and Brandon hit up the Covered Bridge Festival in southern Indiana. It's not quite southern, but southern from where I'm at. We did pretty good there. I went by myself on Thursday, and then me and him went together on Friday. I don't garage sell on Saturdays, really, so we didn't do anything then. Okay, let's get some bubble wrap on this Michael Myers figure. Again, this is what we're packing up right now. Sold for $17.99 before shipping. Most of the time, I like to get just a layer of bubble wrap. Makes the buyer feel like you care a little bit more about their items, even if it's not going to necessarily protect it much, because I'm going to put some good amount of packing paper in here. So we're really not even going to need the bubble wrap. Welcome if you're just now joining in. We'll chat there. Anybody else go garage selling this weekend or Thursday, Friday? I did pretty well both Thursday and Friday. Again, just trying to get this packed to where nothing's going to be moving in there. We actually had about 40 orders that needed to go out. But a lot of those Brandon had, or they were in the storage unit, and I just don't have at the moment. So I think I had like 10 or 15, somewhere around that mark. Welcome now if you're just joining in. First order's packed up now. Doesn't move inside the box. This was a Michael Myers figure that we picked up from a huge toy purchase. And then we will move on to the next one. And to stick with that same theme, we have another figure that also came from that same lot. This one sold for $19.99. Yeah, I know. I'm just getting them packed up for tomorrow, Justin. The post office is not open today, but we sold this Scream figure, $19.99. This also came from the same huge toy purchase. Justin, how's it actually looking on YouTube? Is it super choppy today? I know last time it was pretty choppy on there. Hopefully with the GoPro working right, it's looking a little better than it did. Again, we're going to get a layer of bubble wrap. I always like to put some bubble wrap on my items. It just makes it look a little nicer. Even though I use quite a bit of packing paper, And a lot of times I don't even need the bubble wrap, but I just put one layer of bubble wrap on there to give it the appearance that it's packed even nicer than it needs to be. Business, was there any garage sales up in Michigan this past weekend? Or are you guys pretty much done up there? Oh, good. Better than last week. I appreciate that. I don't know if I need to upgrade the internet for an upload speed, but for some reason on TikTok it seems to be fine, but on YouTube and Facebook it has not looked the greatest. So hopefully this feed looks pretty good for you guys. And I like to get a little bit of a layer of packing paper inside there. I had 4 orders on just my store. And then we had more on mine. Nope, 45. Oh, garage sales are done. We're pretty close to the end of garage sale season up here. We had a really big weekend. We just had a really big weekend of garage sales. There's a thing called the Covered Bridge Festival in Indiana. And basically a ton of small towns that have these covered bridges, they do town-wide garage sales. And it actually runs for 2 weeks. So they started on Thursday this past week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they will run all the way through next weekend as well. But next weekend I will be gone on vacation, so I'm not going to be able to hit any of those. So we just packed up that Scream figure. No shaking in the box. That's what we like to see. Let's see what we got. Next item here. These aren't super exciting or anything, but they need to go out. Where did I put them? Have to move some stuff around here. These are drop cloths. We picked these up, I think, last year at a another festival sale. And I think we had $5 into each one. And we sold these for $25.90 before shipping. So we got 2 of them. So tri-fold drop cloths. And thankfully I was able to reuse a box. This is the box that my packing paper comes in. It is a little longer than I need it to be. So instead of cutting this down to size, I'm just going to fill packing paper on the end here so it doesn't move around. So if we get a nice thing of packing paper right there, it should keep it from moving. And I think I will cut it down height-wise, just so I don't have to put a bunch of packing paper all over this thing. So I'll go through and make sure that these fit a little tighter in here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm putting these cuts on there so you can see how high it normally stands. If I can put those cuts on there, I can basically make the box smaller to where I'm not going to have to use as much as my packing materials as I normally would. And it's not like a drop cloth needs extra protection. It's not going to get damaged in the box or anything like that. Let's pull this up so I can see. Anybody else have any garage sales that they hit this weekend? Oh, there goes the camera. I was afraid that would happen. We're going to just try to set this up a little differently so the GoPro, my apologies. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. I tried setting up the GoPro so it was closer to my camera on my phone. That way it wouldn't look like I was looking so far off into the distance. Yeah, but did anybody else have any garage sales that they did? We're coming up to an end where we're at. Maybe have another week or two left of garage sales, and then it's probably going to be over. We're not fortunate enough like those California people or people in Florida to have year-round garage sales. I'm not adding packing paper to protect this, but really just adding it so it doesn't move around as much in the box. I hate when it moves around. It just looks very unprofessional. And since I'm using a reused box, I need to pull off the packing slip that was on it before. Perfect. So it's not moving around very much. Just got to tape this up, secure it so it can go out tomorrow. Post office is closed today. I think it's Columbus Day today, maybe. Not 100% sure why it's closed. I think it's Columbus Day. So let's talk a little bit about Covered Bridge Festival. So I went on Thursday by myself. Brandon got in a car accident last week, so he was in the process of trying to get a new vehicle. So I went solo, and I did pretty well. I hit pretty hard that first couple hours that I garage sold, and honestly, I probably could have turned around and went home after that because I didn't really find too much after that. But the first couple sales, I actually did pretty well. Some of my favorite finds were the vintage, I think they're called Pillow Pals that WWF made back in the day. So I got 2 Hulk Hogans and I got a Macho Man Randy Savage. I did have to pay up for him a little bit. She was not budging. She was not budging on her prices at all. So I had to pay $15 a piece on those, but I think they go anywhere from like $30 to $50 each. So it'll still be a good, I'll still make money off of it. It's still a good deal. So we got one more item to pack up from my personal store, and then we'll move on to mine and Brandon's. And I did have one order on Poshmark this time as well. And this one was the drop cloths. Okay, final order on my store. And I have had this item for quite some time. It is a Sony Dream Machine. And I probably paid $5 for this if I had to guess. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for it. But we sold this for $19.99 before shipping. So $19.99 before shipping. And again, I've probably had this for over a year. I used to pick these up when I would find them for $5. I just pass them on them now. I don't even pick these up. I see them all the time at Goodwill, and they just don't move as quickly as I need them to. Not sure what box we're going to use for this. I may have to grab one. I don't think it'll fit in this one. So this is like a box that I buy a lot of, and I don't think it'll fit in here unless I go, maybe if I go sideways. It does fit, but I think that's too tight of a package. There's no room for any bubble wrap. There's no room. It doesn't really shut. I'm going to have to grab another box. So let's step to the side here. Let me go grab another box. I'll be right back. This box probably going to be a little too big, but that's fine. I get a lot of my boxes donated to me from people that I used to work with. This one already has packing peanuts in it. And I hate dealing with packing peanuts. So since they donated the box to me with those, I'm going to go ahead and use them. Mainly to get them out of my barn. Okay, let's get some bubble wrap on this Dream Machine. I'm going to do a big layer of bubble wrap. Not like a lot of it, but the fatter bubbles. And then I'm going to go over it on this side with the smaller bubble wrap. Okay, so I got the packing peanuts. There wasn't enough packing peanuts to actually make this secure, so we are going to go through it with some of our packing paper. Make sure we go around the item nice and secure. So as you can tell, we got it all the way around the item. It doesn't move around very much. Once we add some paper to the top, it should be pretty secure in that. Is your barn heated or does it get a little chilly out there in the winter? It does get pretty chilly out here in the winter. I just go ahead and shut the door, and then we have some space heaters that I run those, and it does okay. My barn, if you can see it, yeah, you can kind of see it up there. My barn is insulated, and the insulation's pretty thick. It's a spray foam insulation. So it actually, if I can get it warm in here, it actually stays pretty warm. My business goal is to eventually get it to where it is heated and cooled out here, though. I actually have a propane tank already sitting out back, ready to get it heated, and I actually bought the heater. I just never got it hooked up and never paid anybody to hook it up. But now I'm considering getting one of those units that can do both the heating and the air conditioning. Okay, we have, of course, a packing slip from whoever donated it to me. So we're going to make sure that packing slip's off there. And this was our Sony Dream Machine that we sold for $19.99. No movement in the box, which is exactly what we want. And that covers everything on my personal store. Now we get to move on to mine and Brandon's. So first thing that I've been looking at that I want to get them out of here. This little bundle sold for $15 before shipping. And I'll show you what we got here. This came from a purchase where we bought out a woman's retail arbitrage store, basically. She would go to Target and Walmart's and buy things on clearance. And she was a pretty wealthy woman. She didn't actually need to do it. And she ended up selling everything to us. And I think we paid $6,000. I don't think it may have been $7,000. It was either $6,000 or $7,000. I can't even remember at this point. But I have a lot of 15 of these Zuru mini brands. So like, you know, you got the Velveeta cheese. So this lot of 16 sold for $15. And we have been just bundling these up in like similar food. Like this was a lunch bundle. So it's actually like food you would use for meals. We did like dessert bundles, breakfast bundles. But we've sold over 300 of these. And we're actually at $5,000 in sales in just these little Zuru mini brands, which is pretty crazy. They actually did really well for us. I put a mini split unit heating cooling in the office I'm building. If you can install it yourself, the cost goes down from about $5,000 to $6,000 to less than $2,000. And how hard is it to install it yourself, Justin? Is that something that, as long as you have like the proper tools, Like, do you have to run gas to it? Like, what is it? Does it run off electricity? We're just going to use this little 4x4x4 box. And what I like to do with these little bundles is I take a piece of bubble wrap, I put it over like this, and then I make like a layer. I try to make them as flat as possible. Like that'll be my first layer. And then I will fold that bubble wrap over, put another layer. And then again, I'll put another piece of bubble wrap on there. Again, the main reason I add the bubble wrap is not necessarily that they needed protecting. I just don't like them moving around in the box. So after this layer of bubble wrap, that should do it. So we had the 16. Needs just a little bit of paper. Doesn't move when I shake it. That's always the test for me. And this one will go out. Where's everybody from that's watching today? I definitely wouldn't be comfortable doing it myself, even though my contractor told me I probably could have. Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable doing it myself either. I am not the most handy person when it comes to installing things. And I'm assuming I would have to like cut a hole in the wall, and I don't have the necessary tools for that either. So this was the Zuru mini brands. See what we can do on the next thing. Anybody from Indiana that's watching today? Let's do a comic. This comic, I cannot even tell you where we got it. I've had this brand of comic multiple times. I've sold one of these for like $400. That was an older one from the 40s. These actually do pretty well in bundles, but this one we decided to list separately, and it sold for $20.24 before shipping. Dealing with charged gas lines, yeah, I don't want to deal with gas or propane or anything like that. So the way I ship out my comics is I have the sleeve on it. I will cut a piece of cardboard to make sure it doesn't move as much. And I have some spare cardboard that I've cut off boxes in the past, if one of those will fit. Actually, I'm not going to use the cardboard because I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a layer of bubble wrap on this comic. Because I want to make it a little thicker to go into the box. So we've got that layer on there. And then I'm going to use a record mailer. I use these for my comics. I also use them for my books. And I also use them for records, obviously. But I think with this record mailer, once I get it folded down, I don't think this comic is going to move in here. And I can always add another layer of bubble wrap just to make it a little thicker to where these cardboard pieces hold it down. But basically it goes into the mailer like so. It does look like it's going to be all right. And there's two or three different like folds that you can do on these mailers. So if you need it for a record, you need it for like a record set, they have different sizes you can fold it down to. And we're just going to fold it down to the smallest. So once it's taped, there is no movement in there. So I'll be fine sending it just like this. Appreciate everybody that's just now joining in. If anybody's got any questions about reselling, about content creation, anything really, feel free to send them, put them down in the comments. It helps these lives move along a little bit. Why Why is that? Oh, my camera moved. That's why. This GoPro is really getting on my nerves. There we go. Justin, do you guys do any estate sales where you're at? Or do you just try to focus on Facebook and thrifting while during the wintertime when garage sales aren't going on? Okay, that's packaged up. Nice tight fit. And we can move on to the next item. Let's see. Next item we have. That's a pain in the butt one. We'll do that last. Let's ship this Kermit the Frog. Kermit here came from an estate sale, and I'm pretty sure we paid $2 or $3 for him. We did really well at this estate sale. I will actually have a reel coming out and not too long where we bought a ton of Hello Kitty Build-A-Bears from this same estate sale, and we made all of our money back and profited probably triple on just those Hello Kitty Build-A-Bears. So this Kermit sold for $20 before shipping. Like I said, we paid $3 for him. He should go in this box just fine. And he fits in there nicely. I will put just a little layer of bubble wrap. Actually, I'm going to do the packing paper. I can tell there's a little room in the top of that box, and this will help Kermit not slide around in the box. Of course, got to do the shake test. No sound from the shake, which is what we want to see. Where's everybody watching from? Anybody that still has garage sales going on where you're at? Okay, Kermit's done. Move on to our next item here. Let's ship out. Okay, we've got these that we'll do. These deer came from a church garage sale where we paid, it was either $10 or $20 for all of them. And we got like 10 of these deer. We also got the sleigh. And I had the same buyer. This is actually a different buyer. We've sold 6 of these so far. This bundle sold for $29.98. So we had $10 or $20 into all of them. I can't remember. But yeah, that sold for $30 before shipping. So we're going to go ahead and use some bubble wrap for sure on these. These are made of porcelain or ceramic, and we don't want these to break in shipment. I'm not a fan of estate sales / crowds. The antique shop I sell out of hosts estate sales year round. They used to always tip me off about any video game stuff, but they don't seem to anymore. Oh, that's a bummer. Anytime you get tips about what you're looking for is always helpful. Yeah, my opinion on estate sales is, especially in Indiana, around the Indianapolis area, they are a last resort for us. If we can do anything besides that, then we'll do it. The estate sales, you have to wait in line. You have to be there extra early. Most of our estate sales start at 9, but they put out numbers at like 7, and you need to be there like an hour before they put out numbers if you want to get the best stuff in that sale. So it's a huge time commitment to not even know if you're going to buy anything. That being said, every now and then we crush it at an estate sale. And it's one of those things during the wintertime, we go ahead and do them because that's really all that we have available besides thrift stores. But it's something that we dread every time. You're battling people, especially if you're looking for clothing, you have to run and basically just scoop the clothing into a bag and then look at it later. It's not a fun environment at all. So let's get back to packaging these. We're going to put the bubble wrap on the deer. These are called I think they're called Kimble with a P. Kimble deer. Like I said, this is the 3rd bundle we've sold of these. The first person bought 2 bundles. And I listed these all individually. And every single time that somebody bought them, they bought them in lots of 2. So I'm pretty sure I only have 2 deer left, and then I still have the sleigh. I don't think we sold the sleigh yet. Running out of small bubbles on that roll anyway. Anybody else have any really good sales this weekend? Justin, you have any like crazy sales lately? Justin kills it with Facebook pickups where he's at. If you're not following Justin, it's Business17. I highly recommend you give him a follow and try to convince him to make reels like I've been doing. He used to do YouTube videos, and he pretty much just does the pictures on Facebook and Instagram now. I think he's on Instagram. But give him a follow, Business17. That's BIZZNES17. I've been trying to convince him to make reels for a while now because I think he'd be killing it with the amount of video games that he finds up there. There's our first deer. Let's get this second one packaged. Appreciate you if you're just now joining in. Feel free to comment. It helps make these lives go a little more if we can all discuss as a group different stuff. Hey, thanks, Dragon Fruit Fly. Where are you based out of, Dragon? I'm in central Indiana, and Business, he's up in Michigan. Oh, no worries. I'm listening too, but I'll try to take breaks and comment. It just, the comments just help the lives move a little bit. I do my best to try to talk, but sometimes it's hard to just come up with topics out of the blue. In Massachusetts, huh? So your garage sales have probably been over for a couple weeks, I'm guessing. No problem, Justin. No real notable finds from me the last couple weeks, but gearing up to move into the new office, so I've been trying to slim down the death pile. Yeah, I've got, as you can see, all around me is death pile. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so we got these actually bubble wrapped. Let's try to get them in the box now. And of course, I got to step away and grab the box. The good thing about this box, it's nice and thick and heavy. We actually got this from a purchase where we bought a bunch of Hot Wheels. And we got 20 of these boxes filled with Hot Wheels. So it's a good box to reuse. Funny enough, we still have some going on. We usually have estate sales through the fall too. Yeah, we have estate sales all year round. So even when it's winter, we'll still have estate sales, which is pretty much the only time we go to them. Excuse me. Okay, let's get some paper into this box. I want a nice layer. That way these deer don't break in shipment. And I can actually kind of sit them upright. Is that a barn you're in? It is. It's a pole barn. When I moved into this house, this barn had no insulation. It did not have a garage door. It only, if you can see, there's a door open back there. It had a normal door. It had a dirt floor as well. And when we moved into this house, it was my goal to make this basically my eBay space. So the first thing we did is we put concrete down on the floor, and that allowed us to get a garage door in here. And then I insulated it after that. So the next goal for this barn is to get it heated or cooled. That's my plan. I shouldn't say heated or cooled. I want them both, heated and cooled. I was working out of the basement in my house. I think we've been in this house for like 3 or 4 years. And unfortunately, there's a lot of moisture that gets into my basement. It's not sealed particularly well. It's not a finished basement or anything. And I actually still have a lot of my inventory down there. But I had to get out of there pretty quickly because things were getting moldy and mildewy, especially like clothing items and stuff like that. I got a couple crazy cats in this barn. They're making some noise over there. The cats do a great job of helping protect from the mice out here, but unfortunately they do get their cat hair on stuff. Again, I'm kind of going overboard with the paper because these are ceramic and I don't want them to break during transporting. I'm going to cut this box down just a little bit. If you can see, I don't know how easily you can tell, there's quite a bit of room up top. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit to make it a shorter box. So that's as much as I'm going to cut it down, but I'll go around all the way around the outside. Top it off with a nice layer of paper on there. And then get this taped up. Dragon, what do you sell? Do you have a preference? I pretty much live under the mantra that if it makes money, I will buy it and sell it. So I don't limit myself to anything, but I understand there's some people that do a little bit of everything, or some people that have to be niched into a market. Nice. I feel like that's the most fun. You're constantly learning about new things. I've went down deep rabbit holes of littlest pet shops. I've done pottery. I've done clothing. I've done a little bit of everything. And I like the learning process just as much as the selling process. Okay, now that we got that box taped down, of course, we got to give it the old shake test. And there is no movement in there. So now we just got to get it taped. Tape this sucker down so we can get the label on it. Again, the post office is closed today, so all of this will go out tomorrow. I am a tech by trade, so I do like fixing up old stuff sometimes to resell, but like you, I do it all. So like fixing up old stuff, do you mean like electronics? Like repairing cameras and stuff like that? Because if you do, that is a skill that I definitely need to learn. I'm not very good. Yes, old electronics. I am the type of person that if I put batteries in it or I plug it in and it doesn't work, I pretty much end up donating it or selling it for parts. I'm not very good at fixing things. I got my start reselling video games, so I can repair some old video games. To a certain extent, like I can change out pin connectors and I can do a very small amount of soldering. But when it comes to lasers and stuff like that, I'm pretty bad at fixing that kind of stuff. Okay, almost got this one finished up. We only have a few more things to ship out. I've got one that I'm kind of dreading because it has to be in a pretty large box, but we'll talk about that in just a second. It's one of those items, like once you sell it, you're glad that it's gone, but then you're like kind of frustrated that now you have to deal with it. Man, those cats are going crazy over there. My dog's also outside. He's kind of a big sissy, so he likes to hang out inside when it gets cold out. Come here, Ram. Come here, Ram. Let's see if Remy will come up. Get him on camera. I caught him a little bit earlier eating the cat's food, so he ran out of the barn because he was scared. Do you ship bigger items UPS and other stuff USPS? So I ship whatever is the cheapest. So sometimes UPS, a lot of times UPS is the cheapest way to ship a bigger item, especially if it's over that 12 by 12 by 12. UPS is normally the best option. We have a business that's like a block away from our post office that picks up UPS and FedEx orders. So I just ship whatever is the cheapest. So if UPS is the cheapest, I go ahead and do that. I don't really worry about what the person actually paid for. Like if I shipped out something UPS and they paid USPS, I've never had any issues. So I always just select whatever's cheapest. And that's the way I go about doing it. And then I'm able to drop it off at the business that's very close to the post office. Okay, those Kimple deer are finally packed up. Again, I'm going to save that bigger item because I don't really want to deal with it at the moment. But we can move on to this Dino Trucks. Dino Trucks. Where is the remote for my Dino Truck? I may have accidentally hit it off my table. Well, oh, there it is. Okay. So this Dino Truck comes with the remote. It's this guy right here. We picked this up at a town-wide garage sale, and I'm pretty sure we paid $2 or $3 for it. It sold for $30 before shipping. These Dino Trucks are pretty good, and if you can get them for cheap, they actually do pretty well online. And it does work. I tested it. I took out the batteries. I don't ever ship batteries. I go through them enough to not include them with people's orders. Yep. So Dino Trucks, I have found, so this guy comes off. I have found this guy a bunch too. He's kind of worth picking up if you can get him for like a quarter. You can sell him just individually, but this one was complete. So he sits right on the top there. I had some good luck with plushies lately. We do most of our plush we sell in our flea market booth, and we get like Squishmallows. We do like $5 to $15 depending on the size, and we have killed it with those Hello Kitty Build-A-Bears. I don't have any going out today. Actually, we do, but it's in the storage unit. But we sold one for $85 this past weekend. So I don't think he's going to fit in this. I wish his tail came off because that makes him a little too long for the box I wanted to use. Not sure what box I'm going to put him in, actually. Maybe I'll... I don't know if he'll fit in this one or not. That's the problem. He's just a little too big. He's not like a giant item, but he just doesn't quite fit in the boxes that I have. Let me go grab one. I don't even know if this box will work. I may have to sit him aside. So I use this box a lot for like my medium-sized items, but he may be too tall for it. What up, Flame? I'll tell you in just a second. He does fit. I have to lay him on his side, but he does fit in there. Welcome in, Flame. I'm glad to see you. So this weekend... Oh, I missed this. I got a Webkins for free and resold it for $120. I really need to start looking for those Webkins. I've heard some crazy stories about those lately. I know not all of them do super well, but I think it's worth looking into. Now, for just general Webkin stuff, do some of those move okay as well? That maybe aren't necessarily rare, but like kind of bread and butter finds, do they move? I'm going to bubble wrap the small pieces. So I don't think I need to necessarily bubble wrap the big guy, but I'm going to bubble wrap these small ones so that way they don't get lost into the packaging. Hey, what's up, Bearded? So I was just talking about the Hello Kitties. Bearded is the reason that I knew about them. He made a video where he picked up one and he made really good money off of it. And then like a week later, after seeing his video, I found like 10 of them. So we made like $300 or $400 off those Hello Kitty Build-A-Bears. So we're going to package these up real quick, and I'm going to talk about my weekend flame because we got some pretty cool stuff. So this weekend, we went to the Covered Bridge Festival, which is about an hour away from my house. And it is a festival that runs for 2 weeks. And on both ends of those weeks, they have garage sales. So I started on Thursday and I went Friday as well. I don't garage sell on Saturdays, but I'm sure there was a bunch on Saturday as well. We got some really cool stuff. I didn't run into too many obvious resellers. I saw a clothing guy that I see all the time. I actually ran into, there was a guy wearing a Harley shirt, and I asked if he would sell me any old shirts, and I didn't realize he was a reseller. And he actually messaged me on TikTok to ask me if I was at Covered Bridge. So I ran into a couple resellers, but there weren't a lot. A lot of times when I go to like town-wide sales, I always ask for video games and old toys. Nobody was telling me like you're the fifth person that's asked for that. So I didn't have much competition, although we didn't find a lot of video games. Appreciate it, Bearded. The only problem that I have with my setup is I have my bubble wrap here and I have my packing paper, but all of my boxes are like 2 rows over. So anytime that I don't have a box that I need, I have to walk all the way around. But it helps get the steps in because I'm sure I could definitely use more steps. And I need to learn to stop talking when I'm messing with the packing paper. But some cool stuff that we found this weekend. We got a vintage FFA corduroy jacket. We got, I'm trying to think of some of the cooler stuff. We got some not Miko. Is it Miko? They're like an action figure brand. We got an Aquaman, we got a Boxer, and we got an Incredible Hulk. Mego, I think that's what it is. M-E-G-O, Mego. We got some cool Pokemon medallions. We got some Carhartt jackets. One of the interesting things, I have a funny story we'll tell. We went to this sale and it was Redneck Haven. Okay. There weren't very many teeth at that sale. And they basically, this woman told us that she had a bunch of old video games at her house and she lived 30 minutes away. Keep in mind, we were already, that's a weird way to say it, already an hour away from my house. So the extra half hour, which is further away from my house, would have made it an hour and a half trip back home. So I constantly, to try to get an idea of what she had there, I said, like, you know, I won't make a trip for just like a Wii and a PlayStation or something along those lines. She's like, no, I've got older stuff. I got Atari. I've got the old Nintendos. I was like, okay, well, if you have that stuff, I'll make the trip for it. So she said, my son is there. Sorry, I'm kind of laughing because she said, my son is at home and he'll be able to help you. I was like, so we're going to drive there and he'll be the one to help us. She said, yep, no problem. I said, okay, well, what's your address so I can put it into my phone and get going? She could not remember what her address was. She was like, I'm like this Main Street. And eventually it ended up being like 5th Street or something crazy. But we did make the half-hour drive. And we show up at this house, and it's a pretty nice town, but this house looks like a junkyard. It's like crazy stuff all over the place. The sun comes out. Eventually, yeah, it was crazy not knowing your own address. Like I said, this lady was pretty crazy. She had trouble talking to her son on the phone. And at one point she goes, it's because he's got one of those government phones. And like, when we were asking like how big the town was, there was another guy there, and he's like, it's a pretty big town. It's got a Walmart. So that's, and then after he said it's a pretty big town, there's a Walmart. They were bummed because they don't have a Burger King. This is the type of people we were dealing with. So we showed up. He comes outside, and he was in like a garage area. He goes inside and eventually comes out with 3 suitcases. The first suitcase had like an original Xbox and like controllers. I think that was the only thing that was in the first suitcase. Pulls out the next suitcase. There's like a Wii with a broken door, and I don't even think there was any cords for the Wii. Yeah, there was no cords for the Wii, no games, no controllers. And then another third suitcase had like the Disney Infinity base that you put the figures on. And then there was some random, like a PS4 controller, a couple 360 controllers, and that's all that there was. And I was instantly pretty bummed out. I was like, she said there was older stuff. He goes, this is all that I could find. And I said, okay, well, do you mind if I call your mom? Because she said specifically that she had old stuff. And I even told him, I was like, I made a point to her that I would not drive the half hour for exactly this stuff. Like I was not going to drive a half hour for a Wii and an Xbox. Or I said a PlayStation, ended up being a Wii and an Xbox. So I call the mom and I say, you know, you mentioned you had older Nintendo stuff and Atari. Where is that stuff? And she goes, it's in the basement and he won't go down there. And I said, so why won't he go down there? And she goes, he's afraid of spiders. This is a grown like man that's older than I am. He won't go into the basement because he is afraid of spiders. And I almost blew up on her on the phone because like you knew that it was in the basement. You knew that he wouldn't go into the basement. And I told you I wasn't going to drive a half hour to pick up nothing. So he comes back out and I say, your mom says that the older stuff is in the basement. And all he said is, yeah, I don't go down there. And he goes, she's got all kinds of stuff in front of the door. And he like kind of points inside. So I briefly look inside, and it's one of those where you lift the door off the floor and there's a shelf on it. There's nothing on the shelf really. It could have easily been moved the shelf over, and we would have went down and looked for it. But at that point, I could tell he did not want us going into the house. He had no intention of looking at that basement because apparently he was afraid of spiders. So then it came time to negotiate for the stuff. We really didn't even want the stuff. We've got so many Xboxes. We've got, I don't know, a dozen Wiis. But I looked at it and I was like, well, what do you want for this stuff? And he goes, I want $150. And I said, yeah, we're way off from that. And I said, I'm more at like 30. And he goes, well, I can't do 30. So basically I said, $50 is the max that I'm willing to pay. And I don't even think Brandon wanted it for 50. But at that point, we had already driven the half hour. I felt like we needed to get something for being there. And the original Xbox, if it works, it was in decent shape. Hopefully we could make our money back on that. So he eventually says, well, I could do $60. And I again said, $50 is literally my max that I'm willing to pay for this stuff. And we have all this on video. This will be a reel that'll come out. But he said, well, I'm not going to sell it for 50, but you can call my mom. Maybe she'll agree to it. So I call her and she instantly says, yes, you can have it for 50. And of course, I only had 60s, or I only had 20s in my wallet at this point. We had, you know, this is probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had used most of our smaller bills. So I said, do you happen to have a 10 for change? And he said no. And I said, well, we can just run to the gas station or an ATM or something, because I refused to pay him $60 for this stuff. Basically, he said, well, you can look around this area. There was like a fence that had what looked like scrapper material. So we decided to look in that area before we went to the ATM. And there was a diaper box full of audio cassette tapes. And just looking at them, I didn't recognize the bands, but they had names like cancer and death and very heavy metal sounding stuff. So we ended up saying, well, how about you throw in that box for $10 of all those cassettes, and then we'll call it 60 and we can go about our day. And he agreed. So we bought that box for $10. And I think that box of cassettes is actually going to do better than the video games that we drove for him. Because I mean, I saw some that were like $30, $20. I think on average, we should get about $10 a cassette, and we probably got 50 cassettes in that box. So a trip thankfully got saved by some cassette tapes, but spiders ruined our trip. So it was a very interesting interaction for sure. And thankfully, we left that sale and we drove and found a lady set outside, having some trouble talking now. Let me take a breath. Found a lady that she had a garage sale set up kind of out in the country, and there wasn't anything really there except some DVDs and Blu-rays. So this is a sale we would not have found if we didn't drive to pick up these video games. I said, how much are your DVDs and Blu-rays? And she said, $2 a piece. And I said, okay. And she goes, but if you want them all, I'll make you a deal. There probably was 40, 50 Blu-rays. And I said, well, what kind of deal are you thinking? And she said, if you buy all of them, I'll do $10. So briefly looking at them, there were some horror movies, and we sell those all day in our flea market booth for $1 or $2. So I knew we'd make our money back pretty easily. We ended up buying that whole lot, and we've already sold 3 or 4 of the DVDs for like $15 to $25 a piece. So that was another good thing that came from driving the half hour that we wouldn't have found before that. But it's just frustrating when you drive a half hour thinking you're getting an insane video game score, and it's a Wii and an Xbox. Almost forgot that what we packed up here. Okay, this was the Dino Trucks. And let's move on to the next item. Next item here is, how about some Pogs or caps? This came from what we call the Pepsi Man. And these are Pogs, or they call them caps because they're not Pog branded. But last year, we got a ton of stuff from this guy that we called the Pepsi Man. A lot of racing stuff. He worked at Frito-Lay for like 40 years or something. So had all kinds of Pepsi and chip branded stuff. This box, we maybe have like $1 into. It sold for $52.50. So $52.50. I don't think it'll fit in it's not going to fit in the small box. It should fit into this one though. And unfortunately, the box was pretty beat up, because if it wasn't beat up, we probably could have gotten like closer to $100 for that box. But as you can tell, like it's pretty dented right here. There was some water damage on the plastic, you could tell. So we were pretty happy to get $50. When we took that to our flea market booth. We were going to price it for like $5 or $10 in the booth, and then looked it up and realized that how much it was worth. So we instead posted it online, and it sold about 2 months later. Welcome if you're just now joining in. We're packing up some orders for eBay, and I do have a Poshmark. Yeah, I know, Brandon. I wanted to get these packed up, though, so tomorrow I can run them in. If you guys are on Instagram, or if you have an Instagram, give Brandon a follow. He's my business partner. His name is IndyFlip, INDYFLIP. He doesn't have a page yet on Facebook, so you need to follow him on Instagram. But he's the one that you always see with me in my garage sale videos, so give him a follow. He also has a Whatnot. If you want to give him a follow on his Whatnot, he ran his first show the other day. Did the little shake tests, nothing moves. And we are actually going to try to start doing more Whatnots as well. we are able to run our whatnot right from our storage unit. And we did a small video game show last week or 2 weeks ago. And it went pretty well. So we're going to look into doing more of those as well. Okay, got the pogs or the caps shipped out. Let's see what our next item is. I don't have that one. These are the ones that are fun because they're super easy. Socks. Nothing crazy here. This sold for $5. Probably have like 50 cents into it. So nothing crazy, but it's super easy to ship. This will go straight into our poly bag. What I am going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of tape, fold it to the outside, and just make sure that there's no cat hair on these. Because having these cats in the barn, sometimes their hair floats around, and I try to just avoid getting cat hair on stuff if possible. So that'll be good. Fold that up. Straight into the poly bag. Easiest thing I'm going to ship today. And like most things, I like to go a little overboard. So I am going to add some, just ran out of tape. I mentioned this last time I did a video, but this is one of my favorite things that I have for my shipping. I hate using a tape gun, and that thing allows me to have basically a tape dispenser that's big enough for packing tape. So I buy all my packing tape from Sam's Club, and I get these big rolls. I get them 6 in a package, and I think I paid $20 for the package. But it turns instead of having a tape gun, it's a desk tape dispenser. I love this thing. I hear my dog behind me. Hey, Rim. You guys want to see Remy? Remy is a pretty good dog. We named all of our pets off of Pixar characters. So Remy is named from Ratatouille. Come here, Rim. Come here. Oh, come here, Rim. So here's Remy. Yeah, look right here. This is a good boy. Yeah, aren't you? So Remy, he's my buddy. He helps me out here. He's kind of shivering because he's a big sissy. He wants to go back inside. The first time that I'll walk towards the door, he'll sprint there. That way he can go lay on the couch. But this is Remy. Bruno and Issa are somewhere in here, I think. What, you don't like getting held? You want down? Yeah, okay. I'll put you down so I can get back to work. But he's a pretty good dog. Okay, got those socks packaged up. We're almost done. We only have a few more items to do. And I've been putting off this dreaded bigger item that I need to pack up. And that's probably going to be the next thing I'm going to have to do. So I shipped the mini brands. We sold a couple Pokemon games, but I don't have those. Okay, let's jump to this item. I've been dreading doing this one all morning. I've already kind of went and started to make a box. This is very ugly, but I needed a proper box to fit this item. So as you can tell, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. But what we sold is this Laird's Applejack. I don't even know what this is. It's like a cooler, or it's like a heavy, thick plastic. And it's got this top that goes on there. So it's like an advertising piece, I guess is what you'd call it. So it's not gigantic, but it is heavy. And it's an awkward square shape. So I cut this box down. And I think it'll fit just like that. So if I turn the lid upside down, and this is going to need some good packing paper, because the way I had to make this box, this panel kind of folds in. So I need that packing paper to hold it out. that in there like so. And I knew this was going to be a pain in the butt. Oh, come on. Why is it? It's making me drag a puzzle piece for some reason. There we go. Okay. So again, I knew this was going to be a pain in the butt to ship. I've been dreading doing it all morning. This is not going to be quality content. Shoving all this paper into this box, but it needs to be done. It's a prime example. If you don't have the right box, it makes things a real big pain in the butt. Because I've had to try to make this myself, and it's awful. The paper sounds are fine, but my tape gun sound is obnoxiously loud. The paper sounds are fine. So my phone volume went all the way up down from that wrapping paper. Sorry about that. I'm still trying to play around with getting all the audio right. It's such a pain in the box. Pain in the butt box. I'm already over it. So this all needs cut a little more. Okay, now that I got it in there, let's try to get it. This weekend had an awkward moment with another reseller. Ooh, I'd love to hear about that. What was the moment you had, Flame? I had a moment with a reseller as well, but I didn't know they were a reseller. And it wasn't awkward at all. They just messaged me later and told me that they saw me down there. Gosh, this looks awful. But it's part of it. Sometimes you get an awful looking box. As long as it holds it all in there, that's all that really matters. You can look how awful this is. It is a pretty bad looking box. But hopefully once I get it all taped up, it'll probably still look bad, but as long as it holds it all together, that's all that really matters. Sorry, just trying to get this as tight as I can. I was at the flea market and making a pile of stuff from the vendor. He had said there's a PS1. The vendor, you just had to dig and find it. And then a reseller came out of nowhere and snatched it. I told him I'm buying that, and he didn't like it, but I got it in the end. So he didn't like it. Did he like argue with you about it? And did the vendor back you up on it as well? That's what I'd be curious. Since the vendor was telling you where it was, did the vendor help you out? Well, at least he didn't like, get into an argument with you about it. Thankfully, I've never really had anything too awkward with other resellers. Most times that I've interacted with other people that are buying to resell, it's been pretty cordial. The vendor didn't say anything. He felt weird too. Now, if the vendor was the one that was telling you, there's a PS1, you just got to find it, I feel like he should have like backed you up. Maybe he didn't want to get into the middle of something, but thankfully all it ended up being was awkward and not aggressive or anything like that. Yeah, and I'm trying to finish this box. Except the guy from the estate sale. Brandon, are you talking about the one that we saw at the garage sales as well? So I will tell a little story. I think this is the guy that Brandon's talking about. Unless there's, oh no, there's two actually. Let me tell two stories. Because I have had a pretty negative interaction before. And it was at an estate sale, not a garage sale. Keep hitting that camera. Let me back this up a little bit. There we go. So the first thing, I was at an estate sale, and the way this estate sale did it is you put your name down. So you would get there a little early and you put your name down. Then when it's time to go in, they call your name. And as we're getting ready to go in, I noticed that there's this guy that wasn't there when we put our names down. Like I could clearly tell he was trying to get to the front of the line, but he walked in when they said my name. And I was like, hey, they didn't call your name. And he just kept going. And he went to a table of video games and just both hands scooped them into his bag. So I instantly was pretty pissed because this guy jumped the line and got the stuff that I was going for as well as other people. Later in that same sale, a friend of mine who wasn't a friend at the time, we became friends after this, he noticed some of his items were missing from his hold table. And sure enough, the guy that cut in line is also the guy that stole from his hold table. He had like some IU, Indiana University clothing, and this guy just snatched it from his hold pile. And we told the guy that runs the flea market or the estate sale company what happened, and the guy which is why I refused to go back to this estate sale company, he did nothing. He let this guy get away with cutting the line and stealing without even saying anything to him, because we let the person that runs the estate sale know before he even checked out. Like this guy just cut everybody in line. He was being rude and pushy inside the sale, and he stole from people. And the person that owns the estate sale company didn't do a single thing. So I refused to go back to that company. So that was the first time. And during that whole interaction, we may have been calling this guy like a piece of shit and some unfavorable words. So that was a little awkward, but we were pretty angry that he thought it was okay to just steal from people. Because like I talked about estate sales earlier, you have to line up for these things an hour, 2 hours in advance. So you've got all that time invested, and then you end up getting stuff stolen from you, or people cutting the line who did not show up an hour and decided that they could just go in 10 minutes early. And I have seen this guy at estate sales recently too. So that's probably been the most awkward. But there was another guy who ended up not doing anything to us, but apparently he was ripping toys out of people's hands. Like we basically went to a sale that had a bunch of McDonald's toys and little pieces like G.I. Joe guns and Transformer pieces. And he apparently was taking stuff out of people's hands and like trading without asking people. He would just take it out of their hand and be like, well, I want this one. You can have that. So he was awkward, not to us, but we saw him at a garage sale. And he walked up after we walked up, and he told the people at the garage sale that he was surprised that I didn't have, I think he called it a dumbass GoPro with me. Apparently he didn't like the fact that I was filming at the estate sale, even though I had permission from the company to film at their estate sale. But that guy's been kind of a pain in the butt too. He's very awkward, and he's just rude more than anything. But as far as like garage sales and stuff go, I've never really had any too negative interactions with people. About 5 years ago, I had one in my local town, but it was just a one-time thing, and I haven't had anything since then. We have shown up at the same time as people. Like we showed up, we were about 2 minutes late to a sale, and a guy was buying video games, but it wasn't too awkward. And he offered a price that we thought was kind of crazy, so we just walked away anyway. Okay, finally, this box is god-awful looking, but it doesn't matter. As long as it contains it, then it'll be all right. But it's a pretty ugly box. Not a big fan of estate sales. They seem pricey for a reseller. Sometimes, as a whole, estate sales are pricey. There's not a lot of margin there. But there are times when you can really get a steal. We've had multiple estate sales where we made tons of money. Either they didn't research everything. Like one time we found CDs, and we made $1,000 off the CDs, and we only paid $20 for the box. We've sold a record before for super expensive. We found high-end sweaters that they didn't know about. So like anything, if you can get into the estate sale, there's always going to be a chance you're going to find something that maybe they don't know about or that they didn't price properly. But as a whole, they are harder to make money on them, especially when you compare it to a garage sale. Estate sales are pricey, but the quality of items can be higher, and they don't price it right. Yeah, exactly what I was saying. Sometimes you find some pretty good stuff that they just don't know. They can't possibly price every single item in an estate sale. Kind of like those Hello Kitty Build-A-Bears that I've talked about. Exactly why I don't go to many estate sales, breeding ground for drama. It can definitely be some drama. It's kind of like the bins. The bins are like, or what's the other thing they call them? The Goodwill retail outlets. Those can be a place for drama as well. Okay, let's see if I have any more orders to ship out. I know I have one more on Poshmark. Let me refresh this because I think we sold something else as I was doing this live. Okay. So I think I've shipped out everything that packed everything that I have. Now I just need to do the Poshmark order. And of course, I didn't have that ready to go. So try to get that pulled up here. That box is built better than my house. Yeah, that box is very sturdy. It just looks super ugly. Favorite platform to sell on? Mine's eBay for sure. That's where we do most of our business. I also like Poshmark because it's easy. The shipping process, I don't sell as much on there. And like the shipping on Mercari. Pop, I think, is the worst platform. It's my least favorite for me. I don't like the super limited amount of photos. I do use a cross-listing tool. I'm actually using two. I do Vindu. The reason that I do two is Vindu, I didn't realize how good AutoPosher's sharing was. And I signed up for a year on Vindu just to save money. And they wouldn't let me back out of that year. But I use Vindu to cross-list, and then I use AutoPosher to do all of my sharing and my relisting. It just works better on there. And why won't this log in? There we go. I feel like Depop/Mercari is for the young crowd. I never heard of it till recently. Especially for sure Depop. I hear a lot of older people at garage sales actually referencing Mercari, but for sure Depop. It's a pretty young crowd, and I don't do well on there. I cross list to it, and I don't know if I just don't have the right stuff that people are looking for. Of course. Okay, I'm just gonna grab it. I know what I sold it for. It's not going to be exact, but this is a storybook knit. And it has these awesome shoulder pads that go in the inside. But we picked up a ton of these. This is a Siamese cat one. And it's got the Siamese cat on the back. Brand new with tag. I have found these multiple times. And every time that I find them, the person that owns them is like a person, an older woman that shopped on QVC, basically. They would buy these, and every time I find them, they're almost always new with tag. People bought them and then just left them in their closets. And you normally find a bunch of them. Like me and Brandon, when we found these, this is when we were still splitting our items. We probably bought 30 of these, and we paid like $2 or $3 a piece. And this one sold for $80. So this sweet Siamese cat sweater sold for $80, and I've had this for a while. They are not quick movers, but I also priced mine pretty high because they're very unique, very high quality. They're all hand knit, but I do really well on them. I've sold some for $150 before, depending on what the content is. We had some cool ones with bears. We've had angels on them. So if you can find like a really cool graphic, these do really well. And since this is on Poshmark, I can ship this in a priority box and it doesn't cost me anymore. So what I'll do is I will fold up a priority shoebox, and then I will roll that sweater and put it in there just like that. But yeah, storybook knits. So if you ever see those, they are definitely worth picking up. They are the ugliest sweaters in my opinion, but they do sell very well. Like I said, they're probably not going to fly off the shelf, especially if you price them high like I do. But if you price them right, they will move quick. But I have virtually nothing into them. So when that happens, I'd rather sit on something if I know that it'll sell for a lot of money. But there's some pretty wild designs with those. How does sharing your eBay with someone else work for you? So I have two eBays. I have a personal eBay, and then I have an eBay that we share as a business. Me and Brandon have an LLC. So he has his own personal eBay. I have my eBay, and then we share the one. The one we share is extremely convenient because he's able to log in whenever he wants and list from that eBay. And we have a storage unit. So typically when he lists, it normally goes into the storage unit. And then if I list at the storage unit, I put it directly into the storage unit as well. So when something sells, either of us can go in there and get it. If I list from home, I do add it to my personal inventory, and I just try to put the SKU on there. So I have tubs with A through Z and then A2, B2, etc. But we're able to list from it and grab those orders whenever we want. Is your personal setup as under your name, or did you set up an LLC or an S Corp? Mine is under my name. I just did a sole proprietor. But the one me and Brandon share is very convenient, and we're able to see those sales whenever we want, and we have equal access. So if we get messages, that's the only time that it's kind of annoying. So if somebody sends a message and I read it, it doesn't show Brandon that it's a new message. So sometimes we'll miss messages that way, but we are able to respond to those messages whenever we want. And we can accept offers, send offers as a team. So we don't have to, sit around and wait for the other person. The way we used to do it is we had joint items. So like, I don't know, like this pair of shoes right here. If we determined that this pair of shoes was worth like $100, I would maybe take one pair, and maybe he had another item. He would list his item on his eBay. I would list mine on eBay. And then when it would sell, I would have to look and see the cut that we got. And I would have to send him money through PayPal. And we did that back and forth a bunch. And then after doing that, it was like, it's time to get one eBay, because it was ridiculous. What's the advantage of the partnership? So the advantage of the partnership is me and Brandon buy almost the exact same stuff. We look for very similar items. There's some stuff that I'll pick up that maybe he necessarily won't, but I also have a barn that I'm able to store stuff in that he doesn't have that option. He's in an apartment. So the advantage is every time that we were garage selling or we were going to these estate sales, we were competing against each other. So basically what happened was, instead of rushing over and over again, trying to race through the door of an estate sale or beat each other to the next garage sale, we started going in together. So it relieved a lot of the anxiety of trying to fight somebody. So basically, sometimes there were days where I'd get 100% of the profit, but there was times where I'd get 0% of the profit. So you're finding half of the profit now. So there's not like, you're not making more money as a partnership, but there's a lot less anxiety. And we can go into estate sales together as a team now, and he can take one half of a house and I can take the other half. And that's worked out pretty well to where we can both get stuff that maybe we wouldn't have found. So if me and him were both running to the same room, we may have missed the other stuff in the other room completely. So it's basically, the biggest advantage was the less anxiety of chasing somebody around and fighting. Some of the other advantages is we have more income to buy big purchases. There were times, if somebody had like a video game collection for $4,000, a lot of times I couldn't afford to, just take $4,000 out of my checking account. Now I only have to pull out maybe $1,000 from mine. Brandon pulls out $1,000 from him. And then we also have a joint banking account that all of our eBay sales funnel into. And then we pay ourselves from that account. We try to keep about $1,000 in there at all times. So now we have more capital that we can buy bigger bundles of stuff. So like when we just bought Froggy Flips' video games, that's something that I probably wouldn't have been able to do on my own. Or when we bought the basement of 6,000 comics, I wouldn't have been able to do that on my own. This will be the first year for it. Definitely hate 1099s from past experience. Yeah, this will be the first year for it. Definitely hate the 1099s from past experience. The 1099 is not that big of a deal, honestly. I'm probably one of the few resellers that actually likes that they're lowering the income level for when you have to report for your earnings, because I felt that once they lower that income level, it's probably not great for part-time people. But since I do it full time, I feel like less people are going to go out trying to resell, because if they know that they have to pay taxes on everything they're getting, I feel like my competition is lowering. It's probably not a popular opinion when it comes to the tax side of reselling, but I'm actually for it. And then the 1099, whatever they send you, that's not your income. So you can still do, we have a storage unit, so we get to write off that storage unit. We get to write off all of our purchases. So the 1099 is just information only. That's not showing what your actual income is. But I think that was the last thing I had to ship, guys. So that was the last. We did my eBay, we did mine and Brandon's eBay, and then we just did the Poshmark. So I'm all done. 10:30, probably going to head into town and head to the storage unit and get some work done, grab some lunch. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. And I especially appreciate anybody that comments. It helps these lives go a little better. I'm not always the greatest at just coming up with random stuff to say with no interaction with people. So I really appreciate that anybody that decides to comment. It helps move along these conversations. If you enjoyed the video and you're not subscribed or you're not following me, do that. That would be a huge help. Give the videos a like. And if you're not following Brandon, follow Brandon at Indie Flip on Instagram. Like I said, check out Business17. He's on Facebook. He has great video game finds. He's a good friend of mine as well. So thank you guys so much. And we will see you next time. Whatnot from flea. We might do a whatnot today. Brandon's saying whatnot from the flea market. So maybe we'll do a whatnot. So follow us on Whatnot. I'm Retro Rewinder on there as well. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining me.